1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's Talk Radio. This is Your Turn, a live call-in show featuring spirited discussion and debate about issues that matter to the community. Stay with us to hear what Northwest Florida thinks. Better yet, call in at 623-1330 and tell us what you think. It's Your Turn here on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's Talk Radio. Now, here's the host of Your Turn.
You have now entered the Oval Office of Talk Radio for the Gulf Coast with Carl Gallups and Freedom Friday. Carl doesn't need a teleprompter. He actually knows the difference between right and wrong, and the difference between common sense and political correctness. He is on a first-name basis with God. What a refreshing place to be. Now, here's Carl Gallups.
And this is a refreshing place to be. Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, 1330 WEBY. So glad that you're listening to us today. Covering 4 states by radio along the Gulf Coast, and of course streaming live to the world over the internet. We're so glad that you're with us today. We've got a fantastic show. Now, the format of today's show is going to be a little different in that I have cleared the slate. Jeff Cooner will not be with us today. Dr. Grace will not be with us today. Bob Chichester will not be with us today. I do want Mike Shoesmith to weigh in for about 10-15 minutes near the top of the going into the second hour as usual, but the rest of the slate has been cleared for you and for me because yesterday history was made. One of the it's bigger than Watergate, folks. One of the biggest perpetrations of a fraud upon the American public and the American voting public apparently has now been proven to have been committed. I mean that's what it's looking like. Yesterday was an hour and a half news conference. Sheriff Joe Arpaio in Phoenix, Arizona. It was broadcast live over at WND.com and CarlGallups.com. We carried the link there to the live feed. And now on CarlGallups.com, we have an exclusive, the entire 1.5 hour show. You can see it exclusively on CarlGallups.com. You can watch it if you missed it. But the bottom line, I've been telling you for weeks, I've been telling you for years this is coming. But, you know, and many of you have been right there with me. I mean, investigating this with me, thinking it through with me, talking about it with me. You and I have been agreeing and disagreeing over details. That's fine. We've been working through it together. Some of you have called and trashed me and called me a racist and called me an idiot and called me a psycho and called me all kind of ugly names because I dared to ask the question of the man who has his finger on the red button and who commands our troops. I dared to ask, could you please categorically prove that you are qualified to hold the office? Some of you have called me all kinds of nasty names, when as a matter of fact, number one, I had the right to ask that even if Barack Hussein Obama could have proven that he was qualified to hold the office, that he had a valid United States birth certificate. I still had the right to ask the question, even if I had been wrong about my suspicions. And if I had been wrong, I told you for the last 2.5 years, I told you that I would come on the air and say to you, okay, I was wrong about my suspicions. But as it turns out, once again, I was right. And I say that a little tongue-in-cheek because that makes it sound like I think I'm right all the time. And of course I don't think that. But I have been right about these major things that we've been uncovering here on WEBY and on Freedom Friday that we've been talking about for years, of the whole global warming scandal. I mean, I told you years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, even before I had Freedom Friday, when I was on open mic, I told you back then that within a few years the whole thing would tumble in on itself. Oh, I was called all kinds of names, but it has tumbled in on itself. I've been telling you for the last 2.5, 3 years that this Barack Obama scandal could not be hidden forever. It would eventually come to light, and yesterday it came to light. Now, let me just get to the point. Let me just say this. First of all, for the entire 2 hours today, we're going to talk about this. We're going to explore it, and some other things. There's other things in the headline news. The death of Andrew Breitbart. is amazing. 43 years old, drops dead of a heart attack. Coincidentally, 3 weeks prior, he made a speech to CPAC indicating that he was going to destroy and sink Barack Obama's candidacy, that he had secret and hidden and locked away archived videos that would completely destroy Barack Obama. Three weeks later, a 43-year-old man is dead. Now, you say, well, conspiracy theory. I haven't said that. I'm just saying, that's interesting, isn't it? Now, Dr. Michael Savage last night went on the air and said, and Drudge is carrying it in the headlines above the folds, and WND is carrying it in the headlines above the folds. Michael Savage went on the air and said, I think he might have been assassinated. Now, you say, well, Savage is just crazy. Really? Michael Savage had Breitbart in his home 3 weeks ago. Michael Savage said he talked to him for over 3 hours and told him then, boy, get yourself some bodyguards. Do not go out in public alone. Do not be seen alone. You've got too much information on too many powerful people. 3 weeks later, Andrew Breitbart, 43 years old, is dead, and Michael Savage is going berserk. I don't know. I think there's probably a 90-95% chance it's just a very unfortunate, terrible coincidence. But there is a chance that 3 weeks ago Michael Breitbart announced to the world that he was going to destroy Barack Obama. There is a chance. Didn't we go through this with the Clinton campaign? Well, excuse me, with the Clinton kingdom. There is a chance. There's a chance. Now, I don't know. I'm not smart enough. I didn't have Andrew Breitbart in my home for 3 hours. I don't know what Andrew Breitbart knew other than his speech. By the way, we've got the speech posted at ppsimmons. Let's forget ppsimmons. Go to carlgallups.com. That's the repository. That's where you can connect to everything. You can hear Breitbart's speech. You can hear Savage's rant. You can hear the hour-and-a-half long expose done by Sheriff Joe Arpaio yesterday on Barack Obama. But let's get back to that for just a moment. It is 623-1330, area code 850. Now, I'm going to talk for the next 10 minutes or so, then I'm going to open it up, and you just call. I mean, you can agree, disagree, go off on it, talk with me. We can explore. You can do the what-ifs. You can play devil's advocate. But here's the bottom line. And I imagine it's going to be strangely silent today from the past naysayers. Yeah, because there's a tremendous embarrassment today by the mainstream media, including Bill O'Reilly and others, who have called us all idiots for even questioning Barack Obama's, the veracity of his birth certificate. But here's what happened. 2.5 years, Barack Obama locks down all of his identifying records, spends $1.7 million. We've been talking about it. We've been outing him. We've been exposing it. We've been demanding that he present his certificates. He, the mainstream media, and some of you have been thumbing your nose at me and others of us who have dared to be citizens, patriots, and ask that question, to speak truth to power. Some of you have thumbed your nose. 2.5 years we've been asking the questions. Well, in the meantime, Dr. Jerome Corsi, who is a good and personal friend of mine, #1 best-selling author, has books published by WND.com. By the way, the same place my book is being published and will be out in just a few weeks. Dr. Corsi and I are great friends. I've had him on this show many times. Dr. Corsi released a book, Where's the Birth Certificate, which was a result of a year-long investigation wherein he went to Kenya, went to Hawaii, had teams of investigators, had investigated this to the hilt, and declared that this book, the information in the book, would bring Barack Obama down. 2 or 3 days before the book is released, which it had already hit #1 on Amazon before it was even available to be sold, and Barack Obama and the White House knew it. So 2 or 3 days before the book is released, Barack Obama comes to the public, dangles a document in our face, laughs, looks down his nose, thumbs his nose at us and said, well, here's my long-form birth certificate. Basically, he didn't say these words, but basically that you idiots have been asking for, and so see how stupid you look, and let's get on with business. But the White House posted that document on the internet. And within hours, many people who had expertise in document analysis and law enforcement experience, and by the way, folks, I have 10 years worth of expertise in criminal investigations and law enforcement. I looked at the document. I immediately found anomalies. I produced videos on them. They went viral. I was doing interviews on those videos coast to coast, from New York City to California to Washington State, on the stuff that I found. Some of you will remember that. Immediately other people got a hold of it. 17 different document experts went on record within a matter of 6 or 7 months saying the document is a fraud. But it was dismissed. Oh, we were called racist for even asking the question. Can you imagine back when I was a cop, thinking a crime may have been committed, and I start investigating it, and the media says you're a racist for investigating the possibility of that crime? I mean, that's what's happened on this whole situation. A crime has been committed against the citizens of America by the man in the White House, folks. And some of you have dared to say, oh, well, rather than investigate the crime, let's just call the people that are asking questions racist. Let's just do that. Yeah, because, he's our man and his skin's dark, so it doesn't matter what he did. What? That's been some attitudes. And so, what happened was, this thing rocked on and rocked on and rocked on until about a year ago. Sheriff Joe Arpaio, Maricopa County, Arizona, was asked through petition by 250 citizens of Maricopa County, would you please do a criminal investigation of this birth certificate and some of his other documents like selective service, etc., because if he is legal, then fine. We'll just defeat him at the polls through the regular process. But if he's not, then one of the greatest crimes ever perpetrated on America and on the citizens of Maricopa County, because, see, Barack Obama was on the ballot, and they said, please investigate this at this level. Start at this level and see what you can find out. We heard from Sheriff Arpaio say that he really didn't want to, and I know that for a fact through my sources that he really didn't want to. Plus, he drug and shuffled his feet for several months until finally he accepted it. Then we heard him say yesterday that even then he thought he was be able to prove that Barack Obama was legitimate and the birth certificate was legitimate and he could put it to rest. But to keep any prejudice from being involved, he employed a team of 6 investigators. He didn't investigate anything. He had 3 lawyers and 3 criminal investigators sit on a team. He gave them 6 months and said, take these documents, see what you can find out, and report back to me. He said that he was hoping to be able to report, hey, look, everything's legitimate, and the whole thing would go away because the alternative is huge. I mean, Joe Arpaio's life has changed forever now, and he knew that would happen. In the meantime, 2 of the investigators that sat on the team have already testified that they were in favor of Barack Obama and didn't want to do the investigation, thinking it was silly, that of course this birth certificate was legitimate. Bottom line, if you heard the report yesterday, and if you didn't, go to carlgallups.com. You'll see the link. You can watch the whole hour-and-a-half news conference wherein they do a courtroom presentation of all the evidence they found. Bottom line is they have determined through a 6-month certified, sworn, legal, criminal investigation, law enforcement investigation, which included the 6 members, 3 attorneys, 3 investigators, and a myriad of digital document experts and outside forensics labs. They have determined categorically that the birth certificate that Barack Obama held in his hand, which makes him complicit and compliant with felonies and treason, he held it in his hand before America and said, this is my birth certificate, you stupid birthers. Now, he didn't say you stupid birthers, but that was the point. Sheriff Joe Arpaio said yesterday, unequivocally, it is a forgery. It is a fraudulent document. And they released yesterday the information that Barack Obama's selective service information, cards and registration, fraudulent, forged, fake. Huge felonies have been committed. It's what I've been telling you for 2.5, 3 years. We're going to have to take a time out. When we come back, I've got a lot more to reveal to you. Plus, if you want to call and be a part of this, I'll give you a prophecy. I doubt if any of the former detractors are going to call today. There's a lot of egg on people's face right now. There's a lot of crow being eaten right now. We'll talk more about that and a whole lot more when we come back. The whole 2 hours is yours today. Feel free to call in. You're listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups.
Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's talk radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
If Carl doesn't talk about it, it probably won't be talked about. Aren't you glad that he is on the air and back in the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio? Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, 1330 WEBY.
All right. Well, Bradley, thank you for that introduction, and he's right. If we don't talk about it here, it probably won't be talked about on most, even conservative radio, much less so-called conservative news, and certainly not in the mainstream media. For example, the last 2.5 years, we've been talking about the Barack Obama birth certificate issue and his identifying documents. As it turned out yesterday, after the result of a 6-month-long criminal investigation, forensic investigation, the conclusive evidence of Sheriff Joe Arpaio is that the document is fraudulent. Now, he said arrest would be pending, or impending arrest, or on their way. And now they were clear. They said, we're not accusing Barack Obama of producing the document, but somebody did. Somebody altered the Selective Service documents, and they proved it. If you want to see it, go to carlgallups.com, click on the link at the top of the page that says See Our Obama Fraud Archives. Click there. There's a 6-minute synopsis video that I have produced that's on the internet going crazy. There's a 3-minute analysis video that I have produced that's going crazy. But there's the 1.5 hour, the complete, you can see it at carlgallups.com, the complete presentation that Joe Arpaio did. And of course, you can call today and talk about it, and we will. And we've got callers on the line. But the bottom line is, not only are arrests going to be made, but it looks like Arpaio is calling for a congressional investigation. I got some information today. I have not been able to verify it, but apparently there's a rumbling within Congress now that there are congressmen now that are calling for criminal investigations through the halls of Congress on this issue, that Congress will actually begin investigation of this matter. Because, folks, I'm telling you, if it is proven that Barack Obama knew that this document was fraudulent and had any hand in producing it or putting it before the American people, which we know he did. He stood there. We've got him on film. I watched him do it. Folks, that's absolutely criminal, perhaps treasonous when you consider what he's done in the 3 years he's been. I'm talking about foreign affairs. I'm talking about wars. I'm talking about attacking nations unconstitutionally. I'm talking about changing our entire healthcare system, and on and on and on it goes. And Arpaio said yesterday his birth certificate is a fraud. It is a fake. His Selective Service information is fraudulent. Brenda, welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. Thank you for being on the line. What you want to talk about? Brenda.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, hey.
Hello. Yes, this is Brenda from Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah, thank you, Brenda.
Thank you for taking my call.
Yes.
I am a first-time caller. I had some friends. We were kind of sitting around talking politics, and, of course, the birth certificate issue came up, and I started thinking about something, and hopefully you could kind of answer this.
Okay.
If in fact this is found out to be a fraudulent document.
Okay, well, let me go ahead and say it already has been.
Okay.
By a 6-month-long criminal investigation, it is fraudulent, and arrests are going to be made. All right, what's your question?
Okay, my question is, does that mean that everything that he has implemented, signed, vetoed, or what have you during his duration as the president, would it be all null and void?
Brenda, that's an excellent question, and it's been asked a lot, and I think I can answer it for you accurately.
Okay.
Do you want to stay on the line?
Certainly.
Okay, good. Okay, there are two schools of thought on that. By the way, we're just 2 minutes up against having to take a break, but here's the deal. Two schools of thought. One school of thought is that, yes, of course, everything he did would be null and void because he was fake, and he knew he was fake. He gained the office through fraud. But I hold to the second school of thought, which really speaks higher of our nation and our rule of law and our Constitution, and that is, in America, the president is not king. And although he's important, and although his signatures are important, and his commander-in-chief decisions are important, he does not make decisions in a vacuum. He requires decisions of military officials, of Congress, of Senate, of representatives. He has judicial oversight, etc., etc., etc. So when the Constitution is followed, and when laws are followed, then then before the president can just sign off on something, a lot of other people have signed off on it. So America is greater than its president who thinks he's a king by fraud. So probably no, not everything would be null and void, but certainly a lot of things would want to be revisited by Congress and the courts. Does that help you, Brenda?
Certainly. And one other thing, if I may ask, the people that are involved with helping him implement this fraud or fraud, would they be held liable as well?
Yeah,
their actions as well?
Yeah, based upon my previous 10 years of criminal investigation experience, yes. If you are knowingly involved in perpetrating a fraud, especially at this level, then yes, you are criminally liable. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Arpaio basically said that yesterday. There were several questions that they should have asked him, but they didn't, and he was smart enough not to go there since they didn't ask. But again, I mean, I'm not as smart as Arpaio, and I don't have as much experience as he does, but I've got 10 years of criminal investigation experience. And that's why I was able to uncover some things 2 years ago and break the news and report it right here on WEBY. But yeah, if the people that were involved knew what was going on and they were involved with him, yes, they are criminally liable as well. And may I say, Barack Obama can be criminally liable in this if he knew these documents were forged and fraud and produced by fraud, and then he stood before the nation and presented it and said, "This is my birth certificate." Yes, he can be criminally liable to all manner of extent. Yes.
Well, I feel in my gut and a little bit of research I have done that he does know.
Yes.
And he is guilty. And I hope the American people can see through all this charade, and let's get him out of there.
Yeah, I agree, Brenda. We've got to go. Thank you for your call,
Thank
Brenda.
you.
I'm honored that you listened, honored that you would ask that question, and I hope I answered it for you. When we come back, folks, we've got this. So much more to talk about, but we've got a lot more to talk about this. I've got a lot more information to reveal to you, plus your phone call, 623-1330. I'm basically giving the whole 2 hours to you today. Let's talk about this. Agree, disagree, let's tear it apart. Let's talk about the ins and outs, the ups and downs, the what-ifs, the ands and the buts. We'll talk about all of it right here on Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. Mallory Bardwell is your world-famous producer. Call up, talk to Mallory. She'll put you in the queue. We'll get you on the air. Folks are already calling in, but you can call 850-623-1330. I'm going to give precedent to those who are first-time callers or the first time in a long time. We'll move you right up the line. We'll be right back after this brief timeout.
Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's talk radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
You might be a liberal if you claim that you cannot stand Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. Yet, you listen anyway to every word that falls from his mouth. You just cannot help yourself. Stay tuned, you will not be disappointed. Now, here's Carl Gallups.
All right, and we're back, and you're back, and thank you so much for joining us. You are listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. 25,000 watts of a powerhouse, burn down the house radio station, broadcasting to 4 states on the Gulf Coast, of course streaming live over the internet, all over the nation, anywhere in the world, and plus we're connected to the world-famous and viral ppsimmons YouTube site with 21 million viewers, 21,000 subscribers. We tweet and Facebook to 20,000 people a day, 1 million people a month overall come to the site. It's an amazing, amazing outreach, and many of those people listen to Freedom Friday, and we're so glad that you're with us. Right now on the phone lines, we've got Panay from California listening to the show today. Panay, welcome to Freedom Friday.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, Pastor Carl Gallups. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for listening to the show out in California. We're honored that you listen, honored that you've called. I understand you have a question about this Obama fraud deal and Sheriff Joe Arpaio's revelation yesterday.
Absolutely. It intrigues me to know a little bit more information about where you think the future is headed as far as the revelations go regarding the Arpaio revelation.
Okay. Do you want to stay on, or you want to hang up and listen, or you want to stay on the air?
I would probably probably get off air and listen to you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Panay. God bless you. I appreciate you listening, and thanks for the question. Yeah, well, what Panay is asking is, where does it go from here? And that's a tremendous question, because the answer, Joe Arpaio answered that yesterday. The media, by the way, you've got to watch this hour-and-a-half presentation. Not only will you be blown away by the evidence and the depth of the excellent law enforcement obtained evidence, criminally investigated evidence, but you're going to be blown away by the media's response. None of them wanted to deal with the details. They just started attacking Arpaio's character rather than dealing with the evidence before them. It is astounding. But somebody asked him, where does it go from here? And he just, matter-of-factly said, well, we're going to be making arrests. That's where it's going from here. Plus, he said, a crime has been committed. I've got to make arrest on this. We've got to pursue somebody being arrested. He said somebody committed a fraud against our nation. And in regard to the highest office of the land. I mean, that is felonious, prisonable, and perhaps treasonous. So anyway, Arpaio said, number one, we're going to be making arrest. Number two, he said, I've got to determine where to take this next as far as federal investigations. And then he laughed. He said, where do you want me to take it? To Eric Holder? Yeah, right. But of course, he's thinking about calling for congressional investigations, perhaps, I don't know, FBI investigations, but I think he's a little leery of that. Arpaio had 30 years of experience at the federal level. But then the third thing, Panay, and listening audience, he said, folks, we've uncovered so much more than just this. He said, but we're just not at liberty to talk about it yet because we haven't completed the investigations. He said, we've completed the criminal investigation on the birth certificate, and he said, it is a fraud. It is a fraud. It is a forgery. His selective service documents, forged. They're frauds. They've been tampered with. They're not accurate. They're not valid. So he said, but in the process, we've uncovered so much more. Let me tell you what else. He did say this. I couldn't believe he said this. Panay, you'll appreciate this. He said that one thing, for example, they have a sworn affidavit from a high-ranking government official, this was all a part of their investigation, who will swear under oath that some years back he was standing in the front yard of Bill Ayers' mother's house when Bill Ayers' mother introduced this high-ranking government official to a young black man and said, this young black man is a foreign national that we've just brought into the country and we're trying to help him get an education. I would like to introduce you to Barack Obama. Sheriff Arpaio said that yesterday, that they have sworn affidavits from the man who was involved in that conversation. And on it goes. But folks, these are things I've been telling you for 2.5 years. Most of you have listened intently and have checked behind me and gathered your own evidence, and we've moved along, and a lot of you have come along with me on this journey saying, you know what, this thing stinks to high heaven. Some of you were foolish enough to call me names rather than deal with the evidence, and now you're looking mighty silly today. But, that was your choice, not mine. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just telling you the truth. See, that's what happens when instead of dealing with the message, you attack the messenger. You always lose when you do that. Don't call up today, for example, and call me ugly names. I mean, that's silly. Don't call up and call Joe Arpaio ugly names. That just makes you look like an idiot. Because Joe Arpaio didn't investigate anything. A team of 6 investigators and a myriad of forensic organizations, investigative organizations did. Joe Arpaio instigated the investigation and reported the findings of the investigation. So it doesn't matter if a New Orleans hooker reported the findings. The character of the person reporting the findings doesn't matter. What matters is the findings. How were they obtained? Were they obtained legally? Were they obtained professionally? Were they obtained correctly? Yes, yes, and yes. Okay, then what are the findings? The findings are that the birth certificate that Barack Obama dangled in our face is a fraud. It has now been proven by criminal investigation. And it's what I've been telling you for 2.5 years. I still can't say, Panay and listening audience, I still can't say, exactly where it's going to go from here. I can only tell you what Joe Arpaio said, he said arrests are going to be made. As a matter of fact, Arpaio also said, and again, go to carlgallups.com and listen to all of this for yourself. But Arpaio said yesterday that they actually know where that document was 20 minutes before it was posted on the internet and what computer it was on and whose computer it was. Arpaio said that. He said now they're going to work backwards from there. And, of course, I know they're going to start pressuring people to turn evidence. I mean, people are going to start singing, folks. This is not over with. This is just beginning. And Arpaio said that, too, by the way. So, folks, I'm gloating a little bit today. I'm vindicated. But it's just begun. The vindication process has just begun. But on the other hand, I'm saddened. I'm saddened for our nation. 2.5 years ago, we warned you. We begged you. Some of you that voted for this man, we were putting out information left and right, begging you to please stay away from this man. Not just because we disagreed with his politics, but he was shady. He had all manner of corruption connected to him. The most liberal and corrupt voting record in the Senate, more so than Teddy Kennedy at the time. We begged you and begged you. Oh, but we were racist. We were stupid. We were idiotic. And then 2.5 years, we've been digging and investigating and presenting evidence about why it still looked like this man was a fraud. But what were we? We were racist and stupid and idiotic in all manner of names. I've been attacked personally. My congregation has been attacked personally by little people who did not know what they were talking about. Did not know. But today, yes, I've been vindicated, and I relish that. Thank you, Lord, for vindicating what I have been saying and doing, and all of the work I've been doing, all of the interviews I've given coast to coast, several hundred stations through syndication I have spoken over. Videos that have gone viral. Millions of people have viewed them all over the nation in investigating this. Yes, I'm vindicated, but I'm sad for our nation. We've got a man in the White House who dangled a document before the American people in an arrogant way. The document is a fraud, folks. This is bigger than Watergate. This is the biggest fraud ever committed upon the American public. And listen, upon the world. How do you think the people in Libya and Egypt feel today? God, how do you think Israel feels? What about Netanyahu, who's been snubbed and trashed by this man? Their very existence hangs in the balance of what Barack Obama says they can or cannot do, and the man is in the White House with fraudulent documents. Folks, this is huge. Just yesterday, there was a radio broadcaster that had the opportunity. I mean, I presented myself. I said, look, I've just looked at the whole hour and a half thing. I've been dealing with this for 2.5 years. I'm an expert in this. I've been interviewed on hundreds of radio stations. Would you like me to give a 10-minute report on what's happening? His response was, no, I'm not interested in that. It wasn't, you might say, well, he just didn't want you on the air with him, Carl. No, he didn't talk about it at all. That blows my mind, people. I'm telling you, this is the biggest thing in American history and perhaps world history that's happened in a long, long time. A fraud of monumental proportion. Can you imagine if this was George Bush? I mean, look what Richard Nixon did. It's minuscule compared to what it looks like this White House and many other people have been. How about our own congressman from this area, Jeff Miller, who I have been saying for years, every time I ask him about this, he's snubbed me, he won't talk to me, he won't return my emails, won't return my phone calls. We've basically been called idiots, and he didn't use that word. I'm going to be fair to him, but no. We were stupid, mad at me, mad at other people because we would dare ask him to do what he raised his hand and swore he would do to defend the Constitution. And I told you in the beginning, Jeff Miller, through his surrogate, the man that worked for him, admitted to me in an email that they suspicioned that the birth certificates were not legitimate, but after all, the 50 states had voted for him, so he was legal. What? What? In other words, if I can get away with a crime, it's okay? That's our local congressman. That's some of our local newscasters. Well, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not interested in it. The biggest fraud ever committed upon our nation. Well, folks, we're going to talk about it. This is just scratching the surface. We're just now beginning. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to let Mike Shoesmith weigh in on this, and then you and I, folks, we're going to have the entirety of this show, the entire remaining second hour, because I still have more stuff to reveal to you. You can call in if you'd like, 623-1330, area code 850, or you can kick back with a cup of coffee and listen to me, because I can talk for hours about this. But, folks, you're living history right now. There are all manner of implications. I'm sure Arizona's not going to put him on their ballot now. Other states are lined up. What's that going to do to the 2012 election? Folks, this is huge. We'll talk about it when we get back, because this is one broadcaster who will talk about it. You are listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. Mallory Bardwell, your world-famous producer. We'll be right back.
Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's talk radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
You are back. Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups and his special guest and Canadian correspondent, Mike Shoesmith. Now, here's Carl and Mike.
All right. Yes, Mike Shoesmith is with us, and I'm going to bring him on. But I got to do this first. We had a caller just a moment ago that couldn't come on the air and asked, well, is any mainstream media reporting this? Yes, a lot of the mainstream media was there. ABC News has already run several stories and has put a huge clip, a video clip of Arpaio making the announcement. You, again, go to carlgallups.com, click on the Obama Fraud Archives link, and we're archiving everything that's happening in real time. You'll see the ABC story right there. I'm telling you, folks, this is huge. This is huge. It's like the broadcaster yesterday. Well, I'm not interested in that. I mean, well, you're going to have to get interested, because this is going to change history. Mike Shoesmith, welcome to Freedom Friday.
Hey, that fraud in chief you guys got in the White House down there, I mean, he may not only be a fraudster with his documents, but he may also be killing off his enemies here. I mean, could Breitbart have been murdered?
Yeah, we talked about that in the beginning of the show. Tell us what you have found.
Yeah, well, the L.A. County Coroner's Office is going to review the matter of conservative blogger Andrew Breitbart, who collapsed and died Thursday while taking a nighttime walk near his Westwood home on possible suspicion of assassination. But even if they found out that he did have a heart attack, which is what some people are saying, will that be the end of the matter? Not so much, Carl. CIA secret weapon used for assassination. Now, when I say CIA secret weapon, people might be just, tuning out because, here comes another conspiracy theory.
All they got to do is
listen up, folks. This weapon shoots a small poison dart to cause a heart attack, as explained in congressional testimony in a video that we have up on our blog, ppsimmons.blogspot.com. We have a video of that congressional testimony, and they show the actual weapon.
Yeah.
And the dart from this secret CIA weapon can penetrate clothing, leave nothing but a tiny red dot on the skin. On penetration of the deadly dart, the individual targeted for assassination may feel as if bitten by a mosquito, or they may feel nothing at all. The poisonous dart completely disintegrates upon entering the target. The lethal poison then rapidly enters the bloodstream, causing a heart attack. Once the damage is done, the poison denatures quickly, and that an autopsy is very unlikely to detect that the heart attack resulted from anything other than, get this now, natural causes.
Right.
Now, what is the media all saying? Oh, he just died of natural
causes. Yeah.
Well, that's what the coroner's report will indicate if this assassination gun does its job. It sounds like the perfect James Bond weapon, doesn't it?
It does.
All this is verifiable in congressional testimony.
Right.
I mean, could this or similar secret weapon have been used, for instance, in the death of Mark Pittman, a reporter who predicted the financial crisis that we're in now, and he exposed the Federal Reserve misdoings? Pittman, whose fight to open the Federal Reserve to more scrutiny led Bloomberg News to sue the central bank and win, and Pittman allegedly died of a heart attack. and he was only 52 years old. And now, most recently, Andrew Breitbart died during a late-night stroll. Recently posted pictures of President Barack Obama hanging with the Black Panthers, and I've got that picture up on the blog too, in case Breitbart's sites get scrubbed. And we also have the video of testimony in Congress of a gun that would shoot a dart at very high speed without detection and mimic a heart attack without detection from a coroner. Could this be how Obama's people silenced Andrew Breitbart? But, you know, there are lots of articles out there which corroborate this from many different authors. And, you know, people need to do the research on this and get the facts. But if people go to the blog, they'll see a video of the gun. Now, this was testimony in Congress, Carl, from 1975.
Yeah.
Now, they've had this technology since 1975.
For 40
years.
Yeah.
Now imagine how far they've come.
Yeah, no, it's 40 years actually, and
okay, 40 years.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. At 42 years, and you know, and I opened the program with going off. Dr. Michael Savage said that he had Breitbart in his home just a few weeks ago, and Breitbart talked to him for 3 hours. And at the end of the discussion, Savage told him, said, "Son, you need to get bodyguards. Please do not go out on the streets by yourself. Please," he said, "you know too much. You're getting ready to bring down the world's most powerful man and everybody around him. Please be careful." He just told him that, and a few weeks later, Andrew Breitbart, 43, dies of a, quote, wink, wink, heart attack while walking in front of his house.
Yeah, and they do have the technology to make that happen without any detection at all. And this apparently this is made out of some sort of an ice material that will melt in the body and is undetectable. But get this now, things are really falling apart out there in the liberal sphere. There's an article today, Carl, out of the Telegraph, and the headline is "Killing Babies No Different from Abortion, Experts Say." Now, you and I have been saying this for many years, right?
Yes, we have.
Killing babies no different from abortion. That's what you and I have been saying. But here's the spin on this. Parents should be allowed to have their newborn babies killed because they are, quote, morally irrelevant, unquote, and ending their lives is no different to abortion. A group of medical ethicists linked to Oxford University. Now, this is why you and I put very little stock in peer-reviewed atheistic journals.
Right.
Because this is an article published, Carl, in the Journal for Medical Ethics.
Yeah.
And says newborn babies are not actual people and do not have a, quote, moral right to life, unquote.
Yep.
The academics also argue that parents should be able to have their baby killed if it turns out to be disabled when it's born. The journal's editor, director of Oxford Center for Practical Ethics, said the article's authors have received death threats. He said those who made abusive and threatening posts about the study were, get this, fanatics opposed to the very values of a liberal society. So they're openly promoting liberalism as an acceptable society, and that killing babies after they're born should be accepted within a liberal society. This is the bottom of the slippery slope when it comes to liberalism, and it's a tragedy. This is a travesty that is happening to society, that children are now being offered to Molech by the liberals today.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, Molech is a god out of the Old Testament Bible, one of the gods with a little g that the pagans worshipped, and one of the aspects of the worship of Molech was to offer your children into the fires of sacrifice. And you know, you and I have been saying this, you're right, for years, because killing your baby is the same as abortion. Abortion is the same as killing your babies, and here we are, now medical ethicists are saying it's okay, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, it's an abomination what we see happening. Liberalism is a mental disorder, and it's one of the major tenets of atheism, as I described in my book. The atheists are wrong, and the atheists are wrong on this and every other point. And, thank you so much for having me on again. It felt like just the old days again. I'm the only correspondent on. But I look forward to the rest of the show. You're doing a great job there, Carl.
Thank you, Michael Shoesmith. I appreciate it. That's Michael Shoesmith out of Toronto, Canada, one of the correspondents from ppsimmons, the world-famous and viral YouTube site. Go to carlgallups.com. You can see everything we're talking about, plus all of the PP Simmons stuff, plus so much more. When we come back, the entire hour is yours. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups.
1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's Talk Radio. This is Your Turn, a live call-in show featuring spirited discussion and debate about issues that matter to the community. Stay with us to hear what Northwest Florida thinks. Better yet, call in at 623-1330 and tell us what you think. It's Your Turn here on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's Talk Radio. Now, here's the host of Your Turn.
Welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. You are in the Oval Office, the White House, of Gulf Coast Talk Radio, broadcasting to parts of 4 states along the Gulf Coast, and broadcasting to the nation and the world by live stream on the internet. Carl is not ashamed of the Word of God, the Constitution, or the Declaration of Independence. He does not care about political correctness, nor does he depend upon a teleprompter or popularity polls. Carl stands for truth, reason, and common sense. Carl firmly believes that America is God's gift to the world. If any of that interests you, you are at the right place. Freedom Friday on 1330 WEBY. Now, here's Carl Gallups.
All right, Bradley Jensen, thank you for that tremendous introduction. And folks, thank you for listening. I know some of you are just now tuning in because you're on your drive home and you flick on the radio at 5 o'clock Central Time and you pick up Freedom Friday, and we're so appreciative. Others of you have been tuned in for the whole first hair-blistering hour because I'm telling you, folks, I've cleared the slate today. We have no correspondence. I had Mike Shoesmith on for 10, 15 minutes with us because I wanted him to come on to talk about the Breitbart situation. But basically, we have been talking about the amazing revelation, history-making revelation yesterday, Sheriff Joe Arpaio revealing that the 6-month-long criminal investigation has conclusively proved that Barack Obama's birth certificate that he dangled out before the world and said was his is a fraud. It is a forgery, and fraud has been committed, according to Sheriff Joe Arpaio, as he reported from a 6-man investigative team who used forensics analysis organizations and digital analysis organizations, laboratories, etc. In other words, it's a 6-long forensic criminal investigation, 6-month long. And it was concluded, and so yesterday the report was given, and not only did Arpaio reveal that the birth certificate is a fraud, but so are Barack Hussein. Let me say it correctly: Barack Hussein Obama's selective service records. They've been tampered with. They are fraudulent. We don't know. Listen, I'm going to give you another revelation. If you were here in the first hour, listen, here's another thing that he said. And again, go to carlgallups.com. You can get all of this. You can see the entire hour-and-a-half news conference at carlgallups.com. There are very few places in the internet anywhere where you can see it, but at carlgallups.com you can see it. Let me tell you what else Arpaio revealed. Get this. He said that, now Arpaio didn't, but his spokesperson from this investigative team said, among many things. My mind's just whirring with everything that they said, but just amazing, amazing stuff. This is just beginning, folks. We're just scratching the surface. This is going to go on and on. The man I've been telling you for 2.5 years is a fraud. This is huge. But one of the other things that they ran into was this. Now, I hope you're sitting down. If you're driving down the road, just grab the steering wheel with both hands. Keep your eyes on the road and be careful, because here's something else he revealed. That once they determined that the birth certificate was no good, once they determined that his selective service records were no good and had all been tampered with, and if you want to see the evidence they have as to how they can make those statements, watch the hour-and-a-half news conference. They go through all the forensics as though they were presenting it in trial. It's amazing. It's mind-blowing, folks. But he said once they realized they had no identifying documents that were legitimate, then get this. They said they knew the dates that he was in Indonesia and flying back and forth as a child. So they wanted to go check the manifest records of the airlines, and he named the two airlines, TWA and, I don't know, Transcontinental or whatever airlines were flying back then from Indonesia to Hawaii. And he said they were going to check the manifest records to see if he was on those flights, and if so, what information they had on him. Now watch. So when they started checking, they found out that those manifest records were not available. However, the National Archives does have records on everybody leaving and entering the nation on international flights. And I don't know the exact details of how all this is kept, but you'd have to listen to the presentation. But the investigator said, so they did go to the National Archives and subpoenaed that information for a period of, and I forgot what it was a long time, it was like a year of flights, and they got roll after roll after roll after roll of microfilm that had these records of everybody that came in and out of the United States on these international flights. And then they started, and they're recorded by birth dates. So they said, we'll go down, we'll find Barack Obama, we'll find his birth date, and we'll find where this manifest listed his birth. Now, folks, are you sitting down? This was one of the things uncovered in this investigation, this criminal investigation, a 6-month-long law enforcement criminal investigation. 2 people on the 6-man jury were pro-Obama people, but they all now agree that there is a fraud perpetrated. But here's what they found out. So they get these reams and reams and reams of microfilm. They start going through it, and they narrow it down to the time that Barack Obama would have been born. They get down to those dates, and the microfilm for everybody born within those dates is gone. So they contacted the National Archives and said, what is up with this? The one little piece we needed has disappeared. And the National Archives people said, we can't explain it. People, some of you guys have been calling me a conspiracy theorist. You're just a nut job. Let me tell you what, the American Revolution began with a conspiracy, okay? I was a criminal investigator for almost 10 years. That's what investigations are. Everything begins with a conspiracy, with a thought, with a theory, with an idea. With an idea that somebody is smart enough to commit some fraud and some crime, and then you begin investigating. It doesn't make you a conspiracy theorist as though that's some kind of dirty word, because you happen to be smart enough to investigate stuff. Arpaio and his group did it. Now they are blown away. I was going to say you should have heard the news conference, but you can. Go to carlgallups.com. At the top of the page, click on See Our Obama Fraud Archives. When you get there, you'll see the entire hour-and-a-half video is right there. You just click on it and watch it right there on carlgallups.com. You can watch the whole thing as though you didn't miss any of it. You can hear everything I'm telling you plus more. I can't even remember all of the stuff they revealed. It's absolutely astounding. But folks, it's what I've been telling you for 2.5 years. I know, it sounds like I'm saying I told you so, nanny, nanny, boo-boo. I wish that it were not so. I truly do. I truly do. I love our nation too much to take personal delight in being able to say, I told you so. I love our nation more than my ability to say, I told you so. I wish that I could come on the air today and say, look, 6-month criminal investigation has revealed, they've forensically examined it, all manner of outside organizations, forensic organizations have examined it, the birth certificate is legitimate, he was born in Hawaii, his selective service records are all there, the manifest logs are all there for his travel, he was born in Hawaii, he's born in America, he's legitimate, he's natural born, everything's done. I wish I could tell you that. And then we could just concentrate on voting him out through the legal process of Democrats and Republicans and independents and all that stuff. I wish I could say that, folks. I've been saying that for 3 years, that I hoped I found out. Because you know what? I said many years ago, 2 years ago, I said, but the alternative is, if we find out the guy's a fraud, our nation's in trouble. And so, folks, here we sit today. Our nation is in trouble. Now a criminal investigation has been done. The birth certificate is illegitimate, fraudulent. His records are illegitimate, fraudulent. The records of his manifest through the National Archives of coming in and out of the country are gone. This man is a fraud and a fake, and somebody has put him up. Joe Arpaio said arrests are going to be made. Congressional hearings are going to be held. Folks, we're talking, if it goes all the way to Obama's lap, we're talking possible treason, imprisonment. We're talking, if you think that I'm being crazy about this, just remember 2.5 years ago you said I was crazy too. But here we are today, and I was dead on the whole time. You know, listen, let's just go to the phone lines. If you want to weigh in and be a part of this, 623-1330, area code 850. Thank you, folks, for hanging on. Thank you, folks, for calling. Thanks for listening. Ask me some questions. I just know too much about this to be able just to dump it all out. You're going to have to ask me questions. Otherwise, I'm going to ramble around because there's just so much stuff in my head. I've been dealing with this for 3 years. As I said, I've given interviews coast to coast on hundreds of radio stations. I've produced videos. I've written newspaper articles on it. I've spoken at Tea Party meetings all over the country on this, and I just know too much about it. And I'm not bragging when I say that. There's just too much stuff in my head. So ask me questions. Let me try to intelligently answer. I won't blow smoke in your ear. If you ask me something I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. Bob, welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. You want to talk about, of all things, the birth certificate issue. What's on your mind? What's your question, Bob?
Well, it's not so much about the birth certificate, but it does have to deal with our current president. Praise be upon him, Obama.
Yeah, blessed be his name.
You know, the thing that gets me, okay, is many of us smelled dead fish odor when he was put up, okay? He came out of nowhere. Everybody liked him. He was beautiful looking and all, okay? But I go back almost 20 years to the man who was brought out of Arkansas. And I had similar questions, okay, with Obama and Clinton as to how they got to be where they were, who paid their bills, their laundry bills, who fed them, how'd they get into the schools that they had gone to, and so on and so forth. You know, the whole, concern now really is the machine behind both of these men, because, Clinton was called Slick Willie. When I looked at Obama and started to learn a little bit more about Obama, he impressed me as being just a perfect example of a Chicago gangster with the little diamond pinky ring and all of the right clothes, tailor-made. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And it's the machine behind these guys.
No, you're right. There's a machine, which has led to the question why Dr. Michael Savage last night went on the air and says that he believes that there's a strong possibility that Andrew Breitbart was assassinated for what he was getting ready to reveal. He revealed before CPAC just a few weeks ago, and I've got all the videos of him saying it on ppsimmons. We've got it there, and it's archived on carlgallups.com. But he said before CPAC and before the world that he had secret archived video information that would bring down Obama and those around him. And 3 weeks later, this 43-year-old man dies of a, quote, heart attack in front of his house on his sidewalk. And Dr. Michael Savage has gone berserk over it. He thinks he was probably assassinated. So, yeah, there's a machine.
I really wonder if anybody can figure it out. Is it the New World Order, the Illuminati, all of this stuff that, like, people who've lived long enough have picked up through the decades of their lives, and it is surfacing now more than ever before. But it goes back to certain people like Lyndon LaRouche. I can remember hearing about that man back in the 1970s and the things he had to say, and he became persecuted for, people laughed at him. But a lot of his stuff seems to be, coming to bear fruits, let's say, and other people along the trail of the decades, And I mean, nobody is really looking at, that machine, and that's what seems to be the kingmakers of you know?
Well, people are looking at the machine, Bob, but I hear your angst, and I hear it. But let me just say, again, I'm going to appeal to my almost 10 years of law enforcement experience, several of those years as a criminal investigator, several of those years as an administrator in the field of law enforcement. And let me just appeal to that. Let me just tell you, when you start getting close to something, when you're investigating, And see, now in my case, as a conservative talk radio host, you know, I mean, I've been investigating things for years in that way. When you start getting too close to the truth, here's what I learned as a cop. The subject is changed, or they try to lead you down a different line, or they attack your character, or they try to trash the messenger. You see? And this is what has happened on all of this stuff with Obama since the beginning. When I first started investigating it, when I first started speaking to it, I mean, I was dealing with it, Dr. Jerome Corsi was dealing with it, Joseph Farah was dealing with it, a few other people were dealing with it at a national level. And I have been dealing with it at a national level. And immediately, rather than dealing with the facts, that never happened, Bob. No, our character was impugned. We were castigated. We were called racist. We were called teabaggers. We were called all manner of vile and vicious. I was named second worst person in the world by name, Carl Gallups, on MSNBC by Keith Olbermann. I mean, that's how they lined up and attacked.
Well, Carl, can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
This machine, okay, I believe, is controlled by the forces of evil.
Of course it is.
Satan's hand.
Of course it is. It's spiritual.
Okay. So I'll just get off the line now.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Right.
Okay. And you're absolutely right, Bob. Brilliant point, Bob. God bless you. Listen, we're going to take a time out. When we come back, we've got all this and so much more. You can call and be a part of the show. 850-623-1330. These are dark spiritual times we're living in. However, if you belong to the Lord, you've got the light. You're the light. You're the salt. Let your light shine. Shake it out and let it shine, folks. We'll be back. Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups.
Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's talk radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
And now, the Commander-in-Chief is back. Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio.
Well, folks, listen, I know this topic is overwhelming. I know it's a daunting topic, and I know a lot of you are thinking, well, I don't know as much about it as you do, Carl, so I don't want to call. But please, feel free and call. Ask questions. Even if you disagree, I really don't mind, because I'm versed in it enough that I can carry on an intelligent conversation with you. And plus, the only dog I have in this fight, truly, is I want our Constitution to be followed. I don't care if the man is black or white, if it's a woman, if it's a man, if it's a Democrat, if it's a Republican, if it's an independent. I don't care. I don't care. I really don't. I wish that it had turned out that his birth certificate was completely legitimate and that he was born in America and completely legitimately able to hold the office of presidency. But that's not how it has turned out. I wished it has. But in the meantime, we've had tons of callers calling and just asking questions and not wanting to come on, but got all kind of questions. One of the latest, and I've got a list of them here, but one of the latest questions was, what's the criminal process now? What's going to happen next? Will there be indictments? How long will it take? Well, those questions were asked of Sheriff Joe yesterday. Again, folks, go to carlgallups.com. Click on our Obama fraud archives. Watch the hour and a half. Set aside an hour and a half. Get a pot of coffee. Watch the entire thing. You will be blown away, not only at the evidence they present and how they present it, but also at the questions the media asks. Oh my gosh, it'll nauseate you. They don't care about the facts. They just want to castigate and attack Joe Arpaio for bringing the facts forward. But one of the questions that was asked was the same thing. How about the criminal process? Are there going to be indictments? How long? And I can only tell you what Joe Arpaio said. He said, quote, arrests will be made, and that he is taking steps now to make that happen, plus to continue the investigation because they've uncovered so much more, plus they're looking at where to take it next at the federal level. You know, you should be able to take it to the Attorney General office, but you can't take it to Eric Holder. So now he's looking at possible getting Congress involved, congressional investigations, but that's what Arpaio said. So how long will all this take? I don't know. Weeks? Years? Months? I don't know. But I would imagine, now I don't know this for certain, but I would imagine Arizona is going to exclude Obama from the ballot in November, based upon this criminal investigation. That's what the purpose of it was. They've already got representatives in Arizona working on passing legislation to get that done. I know there are a bevy of states lined up behind Arizona waiting to hear this information. If you get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 states that just won't even let him on the ballot, he can't run. He can't win. And I mean, now no one can say he is vetted, he is legal, because as of now, Obama's not presented a legitimate document. I mean, that's been proven by a criminal investigation. So he is not eligible to run. Forget where he was born. Forget whether or not he's natural born. He has not presented legitimate documentation of his citizenship at all. The document he dangled in front of our face now does not count. It's no good. Let's go to the phone lines. Wayne, welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. We've got about 2 minutes, so I'm going to try to let you say most of it. What's on your mind?
Okay, real quick. Sure enjoy your Sunday morning program. Also, I think you mentioned some time back that on this birth certificate, some people went to Hawaii to look and was turned down.
Yep.
They wouldn't let them in.
That's right.
But here's the latest thing that I've seen. His Social Security card is bogus. Have you seen that?
Oh no, I've done all kind of investigative work on that and produced all kind of videos and radio programs. I've given interviews coast to coast on that topic. I can talk about it for hours. Yes, I know all about it, and Arpaio is going to is in the process of investigating that as well.
Well, I thought you probably knew about it, but if you didn't, I was going to send you an email.
Thank you. No, I do. Sadly, I know all about it.
You know, I tell you one last thing, though. If the guy gets shot in the head, you better figure out the 666.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, and thank you for that, Wayne. God bless you. And listen, I'm going to have to cut you off, Wayne, because we're running slap out of time. And of course, Wayne is not, nor is WEBY, nor am I saying anything about he should be shot in the head. What he's referring to is a biblical reference to the Antichrist, who it says suffers a terrible wound to the head, but then recovers miraculously, and the whole world worships him. So that's all Wayne was saying, is that the dude might be the Antichrist. And I know folks kind of tongue-in-cheek and laugh. Jeffrey Cooner said that. A writer for the Washington Times here about 3 weeks ago on Freedom Friday actually said that over the air. So people are already beginning to look at that and think about that. Oh my goodness, folks. We've got all of that and so much more. Plus your phone calls, 623. We've got callers on the line, but we've got lines open, 623-1330, area code 850. Folks, this, I cannot stress to you, this is monumentally huge. This is history in the making. It is going to go on and on until something snaps. I hope the legal system will handle it appropriately so that we are a nation of law. We'll be right back.
Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's Talk Radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
Welcome back to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, 1330 WEBY. Carl speaks with ontological certitude and theological indubitableness. For you liberals out there, this means that Carl knows who he is and that he is unashamed to be on a first-name basis with God. Now, here's Carl Gallups.
All right, folks, listen, the phone lines are just going nuts, and a lot of people are asking us, is this show going to be archived? Absolutely. The entire show will be archived at carlgallups.com. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, we're having a few little technical difficulties with some of our equipment. It's going to be a couple of days. Everything's fine. Everything's cool, but it's going to be a couple of days. In other words, we can't get it archived tonight, so if you'll be patient, we will have the entirety of this show archived. Mallory Bardwell, our world-famous producer, she's working hard on it. She's going to work overtime on it. She's going to get it done, and we will have it up on carlgallups.com. Just keep clicking back there and checking. I'm hoping in the next few days, at the latest, maybe even before then. But listen, we're going to go on with the show. We've got callers on the line, but before we do, we've got to talk about this one particular sponsor who makes it possible for this show to be on the air every week. Now, we've got tons of sponsors who support this radio station and Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, but the local yokel, Claude and Melanie Duvall at Ward Basin Road and Highway 90 East here in Northwest Florida, right in Santa Rosa County. They're local folks, and they make sure that Freedom Friday stays on the air every single Friday. So go by and do business with Claude and Melanie Duvall at the local Yokel, the corner of Highway 90 East and Ward Basin Road. There are 4 businesses in one: a convenience store with some 5,000 items, a gas station, the best prices in this area, 100% ethanol-free gasoline, a famous deli. You can eat in, you can eat out, fresh, fried, and baked chicken, a car wash, touchless, state-of-the-art, the only place when I'm in Santa Rosa County in Northwest Florida where I get my car washed, right there. Fantastic folks, fantastic business, convenience store, gas station, deli, car wash, right there. You can't miss it. Beautiful business. Highway 90 East, Ward Basin Road, local Yokel, Claude and Melanie Duvall, and tell them that you appreciate them sponsoring Freedom Friday. Well, listen, we're going to go to the phone lines, but before we do, we've had off-the-air calls and on-the-air calls, people going crazy over this show today. Well, history is being made. It's actually being made. And for those of you that have been a part of WEBY family, and particularly the Freedom Friday family, you've known about this for years. I've been telling you for years this day was coming. And it's going to go deeper. I mean, we've just scratched the surface. It has only just begun. But people have asked me, does the president have any immunity? By the way, I refuse to call him president still. Nothing ugly against him personally or racially, nothing. It's just he has not proven that he's eligible to be in the office. And now we've got a criminal investigation that says none of his identifying documents that have been presented are legitimate. They're fraudulent. They're forged. I mean, those are crimes, folks. If I did that or you do that, we'd be in prison. So the question is asked, does he have any immunity? Well, listen, I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I'm not a lawyer at all. I don't pretend to be one. I have been a criminal investigator. I do know about immunity. At the federal level, I do not. I do know that the president does enjoy, or the man in the White House, does enjoy certain immunities from certain criminal prosecution and or imprisonment while he's in the office of presidency. I do not know what the statute of limitations is. I don't know. But in this case, I'm just guessing, please. It's just my guess. But if it goes to absolute fraud against the American people, I don't think there's a statute of limitations on that. I mean, I don't think there's any immunity. I mean, think about it. I mean, if somebody handed him what he thought was his birth certificate from Hawaii, and he knows he's born in Hawaii, and one of his peons went out and supposedly got a birth certificate and handed it to him, and he stood up and said, "Here's my birth certificate," and then we found out later that the peon played a trick on him and put some fraudulent document in his hands, well, then Obama would be totally innocent, and I'd give him a pass. But that ain't what happened here, folks. That's not what happened. It would have been so easy 2.5 years ago to get your birth certificate and give it to the world. But what did he do? He spent $1.7 million, locked down everything. And then when he finally did arrogantly present a piece of paper, now we find out from a 6-month criminal investigation, it is a forged document and a fraud has been perpetrated. Let's go to the phone lines because I want you folks to be able to register your thoughts on this. Mark, you want to talk about Obama, his administration, et cetera, et cetera? So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is fascinating stuff, Carl, and I have great respect for Sheriff Arpaio. So I'm definitely, when it gets up on your website, I'm going to be checking that out.
Yeah, it's all on my website. Yeah, carlgallups.com. It's all there right now, Mark.
But you can't listen to it right now, though, right?
Oh, the archive show, no. But this show, no.
But the evidence that Arpaio shows.
Oh, yes,
right?
the whole hour and a half. You can see it. You can hear it. It's all on my website right now.
Okay, well, I'm definitely going to check it out and give an impartial opinion on it.
Okay, go ahead.
After I get a chance to digest it, I'm not going to jump on it. I'm concerned that, what they're going to do, they're going to try and ignore this.
I don't think they can, though, Mark. That's an excellent point, and a lot of people have already asked me that off the air. Well, they're just going to ignore it. I don't think so, Mark. I mean, listen, ABC has already reported it. WND, it was on the headlines of Drudge ever since yesterday and all today. It can't go away, Mark. Arpaio says he's going to make arrests. He says he's going to continue with the investigation. He says he's going to call for congressional investigation. It can't go away, Mark. Now, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I'm telling you, it can't go away. I mean, short of an absolute revolution in this country, it can't go away.
Okay, well, we're going to find out. Now, the guy that has done the same kind of work, only on his Marxist contacts, his history, and it's not just Obama. If Obama were to abdicate today, if he was to step down today, he has brought so many people into the government that will be here long after he's gone. It's just, with Elena Kagan, for one thing, has a lot of socialist and Marxist contacts.
I know.
And a lot of the people that he's put in place that have already made terrible changes to documents and things that, legally changed wording and stuff. We're in for a like I tried to tell Terry, is a Gordian knot. The big knot that nobody could ever figure out how to untie it, and Alexander the Great just walked up and took a sword and cut it.
Right. It
was such a mess.
Yeah.
But Trevor Loudon, his latest book is Obama and the Enemies Within, and if you go to this, his web link is Key Wiki, Key and then Wiki, because he's a Kiwi. He's from New Zealand. He left New Zealand and immigrated to the United States because this same kind of thing was going on in New Zealand.
Yeah. Well, Mark, you said just a moment ago that we were in such a big mess because of the tangled web, and and yes, you're right. I mean, that's a brilliant point, and I would add to that we did not have to be in this mess. Instead of calling people like me names, not saying you, but other people, instead of calling us names and castigating the messenger, if people would have just looked at the message from a forensic standpoint a couple of years ago. Because here's what happened to me. I got on the radio, I told everybody what I found, what I was finding, and I was immediately called ugly names. My church was castigated, I was castigated, my people, we were called cults and cult members, all manner of ugly things.
I think you haven't seen anything yet, Carl.
Yeah, but wait. Oh, that's okay. I don't care. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. But the point I'm making is not, woe, poor me. I'm saying that's why we're in the mess we're in, because what those people what they forgot, what they didn't overlook, is that I was using my expertise as a criminal investigator. 10
They're
years.
Being ostrich. Okay? They want to ignore the problem.
Exactly. And that's why we're in a mess. You castigate the messenger rather than just look at the message. Now, if you look at the message and you do a forensic examination, and I'm totally wrong, the truth will rise to the top and we'll settle the whole issue. But that was never done. And now here we are, 3 years later, and what I've been screaming all along is absolutely what has happened. And I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I'm not dumb either. And it was pretty easy to follow an investigation trail and a logical trail. And
all you do is open your eyes and open your mind and do some research. That's all it takes.
That's it, Mark. And it's going to get deeper and deeper. It's going to go further and further. Let's go back to the phone lines. Mark, thank you. Yeah, brilliant call, brother. Brilliant call. Okay, Tom, welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. You want to talk about this birth certificate issue and a law enforcement-related question. Go ahead, Tom.
Yes, that's cool. Hi, I've called in a couple times and
thank you.
Other stuff, and been following this. The question I want to ask, I want to go back a little bit further than the recent birth certificate, the false one, one that's been put out there, and go back to intent of, I guess, the grandparents when he showed up in Hawaii.
Yep.
I believe that the first document came out with a certificate of live birth.
Yep.
And that document, I'm trying to figure out, what the intent of the grandparents were for putting that out.
I can answer that. The grandparents didn't put that out. Obama and his staff put that out because the bottom line is, and I've done a lot of research and a lot of shows on this, but I'm going to give you the quick synopsis.
Wasn't there an announcement in the paper?
Yes, and Arpaio dealt with that yesterday. He actually addressed that. They found out, and let me go ahead and talk about this, Tom, as they found out, those announcements, they have proof. They said they have legal proof that those announcements were never screened by anybody, and they actually reported foreign births all the time in the Hawaii paper as though they were national births, and they have evidence of that from other births. So they said that newspaper, let me finish, Tom. They said that newspaper announcement means nothing from their criminal investigation. So that answers that question. Now,
I was just trying to figure out what if they were trying to set a precedent that he was born here.
Yes.
That some single mother may have a kid offshore.
Yes, that's what they
were
doing.
Back onshore and say, "Oh no, this child was born here." Well, you intend to do that it would be some intent for some reason.
Well, they were trying to do it. Well, the reason is because she wanted her child to have all of the assets of being an American citizen, education and finances, etc. So yes,
someone born overseas.
Yeah.
By the time they're 18, they have to choose if they have American parents or one American parent, I believe. and at 18, you have to go in and actually choose what your nationality is. So I was trying to figure out what the intent earlier than that is, if indeed that was the case.
Yeah. Well, the bottom line is, and we've got to move on because we've got other callers and we've got commercial breaks to take, but the bottom line is, Tom, thank you. Brilliant questions. God bless you for that. But the intent, apparently, I think was relatively innocent on the part of Barack Obama's parents and grandparents back when he was born. They had no idea, I don't guess, that he could be president one day. I mean, how would they know that? But their intent was just to gain for him, to garner for him all of the benefits possible as a citizen of the United States. They knew that they could game the system in Hawaii because Hawaii had a system in place where you could literally get a certificate of birth from Hawaii so that Hawaii could bolster its roles, its citizenship roles as a 50th state of the United States. But the deal was that Barack Obama's parents and family, worked towards those kinds of things in his life. I don't think it had anything to do with him running for president. Listen, we've got, let me see here. Let's take another phone call. Pete, thank you so much for listening today. We've got a minute or two before we have to take a break, but what's on your mind, Pete?
Hey, Pastor Carl, this is just a regular plain Freedom Friday show. I mean, it's always packed with information. You know?
Well, I appreciate
you're turning backflips, but we feel this way every time you present this stuff. I've always followed Joe Arpaio. I think he's a pretty cool guy. I like what he does. I like his technique, but I believe he's probably going to be in some trouble. I bet you a Jerry's Cajun hot dog that probably Arpaio, before this goes through, he's going to get in trouble somehow with the State Department. They're probably going to file charges with him, and it's going to kick the Kenyan can down the road a little bit longer.
Maybe so, but here's the deal. And Arpaio was brilliant. Remember, Arpaio didn't investigate anything. There are 6 investigators. See, people have said, well, all I got to do is kill Arpaio. They probably killed Breitbart. Well, they're going to have to kill Arpaio. They're going to have to kill all 6 investigators. They're going to have to kill all the forensics labs that they incorporated. I mean, you know, it's gone way too far now. They're going to have to kill the whole system, and you can't do that. So, yeah, they may harass Arpaio for sure because he's the messenger. There you go again. He's the messenger, but they're not going to be able to do away with what was presented yesterday for an hour and a half. A criminal investigation has found categorically that the birth certificate is not just illegitimate, it is a forgery. A crime has been committed. And not just that, but his selective service records. And not just that, but on and on and on it goes. As Arpaio said yesterday, arrests are forthcoming. This is just getting started, Pete. You and I have been right all along. Folks, we're going to take a time out. When we come back, more of this show. You are listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. You're not going to hear this anywhere on the news tonight. Aren't you glad you've tuned in here? Aren't you glad you've been listening for years so that none of this is a surprise to you? I told you years ago this day was coming, and here it is. We'll go back to the phone lines when we come back. Freedom Friday, Carl Gallups.
Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's talk radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
If Carl doesn't talk about it, it probably won't be talked about. Aren't you glad that he is on the air and back in the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio? Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, 1330 WEBY.
All right, folks, we are back. And listen, we're going to run out of time in a moment, but we're going to keep taking your calls. 623-1330, area code 850. Drew, you're up next. I'll be with you in a moment. But let me say, folks, please go to carlgallups.com. Everything we've been talking about today, all of the Breitbart stuff is there. The videos, you'll hear him, you'll see him. All of the Obama stuff, all of the Joe Arpaio stuff. Go to our Obama fraud archives. The entire hour-and-a-half presentation that was done yesterday by Arpaio and his team, it will blow your mind. I haven't even been able to scratch the surface. Folks, arrests are getting ready to be made. Congressional hearings will be held. Further investigations will be done. We have just scratched the surface on that fraud that is in the White House. Drew, welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. What's on your mind?
Hey, great. Good to be with you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Dr. Jerome Corsi said today in a 30-minute radio interview that he talked to Breitbart late Wednesday.
That's correct.
And that was before he was found, of course. And,
yes.
And Corsi said he also thought he had been killed. And Dr. Corsi handed the landline phone to Sheriff Arpaio, who was meeting with Jerome on Wednesday, and that he said Sheriff Arpaio spoke to Breitbart for 15 minutes, and that Andrew was very interested in the birth certificate issue and told the sheriff that he wanted to take a more active role in publicizing the information, and in addition wanted to attend his press conference yesterday. And the sheriff told Jerome yesterday that he needed to have more security because he's on Obama's hit list. So the sheriff also believes Breitbart may have been killed also.
Well, let me say, Drew, there are people listening to you and me speaking right now who are saying, conspiracy theorists, listen to those nuts, everything's a conspiracy. But again, I appeal to my 10 years of criminal investigation, law enforcement experience. Not the entire 10 years did I do that. I had other areas of law enforcement, but I did do criminal investigations for years. And here's the deal. When somebody like Breitbart gets up and announces he's going to destroy the president and everybody around him, and 3 weeks later, a 43-year-old man drops dead in front of his house out of nowhere with a, quote, heart attack when he didn't have deep heart problems, as a law enforcement official, I'm going to investigate the snot out of that. Now, does that make me a conspiracy theorist? No, it makes me a good law enforcement officer. What does it make Jerome Corsi? A good journalist. What does it make Sheriff Arpaio? A good law enforcement officer. Now, if they discover and can satisfy themselves that he died of natural causes, which is a distinct possibility, it could just be a very unfortunate coincidence, then fine. But in the meantime, people have jobs to do. It's called investigation. It's called law enforcement. It's called investigative law enforcement and investigative journalism. But what happens in America now, Drew, is that when we begin to do our jobs, and I do my job as a radio talk show host, if people don't like what we're thinking about or saying, we're called ugly names, and the people we love are trashed, and the people that we are our friends are trashed, rather than dealing with the facts.
That's right. But you may need to get more security, too. I hope not, but...
Well, I'm not going to announce over the air what my secure measures are, but trust me, I've got plenty of security.
Yeah, the Lord's looking after you, I'm sure.
Yes, and that's my number one. That's where I was going to go. But on top of that, there's much more security around me than people know. Thank you, though.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Dr. Corsi will be on for 2 hours on Sunday. I don't know which radio stations, but...
we'll have him on Freedom Friday very soon. He and I are very good friends.
Yeah, I heard him on Infowars.com.
Well, thank you, Drew. Thank you. Okay. God bless you, Drew. God bless you.
God bless you.
All right, let's go right back to the phone lines. Clyde, welcome to Freedom Friday. You said you got something real fast. Go ahead, Clyde.
Yeah, it's Clyde from Milton. I just heard, I can't confirm this, but I heard that Breitbart just had dinner with Bill Ayers and Bernadine a couple of weeks ago and had been having a little trouble going on with some kind of heart health problem in the last few weeks. I didn't know if that part coincides with what just happened. But
yeah, I don't know, Clyde. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there on the internet right now, so it's hard to weed through it. What we know for a fact is that he spoke at CPAC about 3-4 weeks ago and said he had hidden archived video that would destroy the president and those around him. We know 3 weeks later he's walking in front of his house and drops dead at the age of 43 of a so-called heart attack, and poof,
I know of other
gone.
people that's happened to.
Yeah. So as a law enforcement officer, if I were still a law enforcement officer and if I had jurisdiction, I would immediately begin investigating that angle, trying to prove that, of course, it was from natural causes. Yeah, that's what I would do. But
spooked out, and I really like Breitbart.
Yeah, thank you, Clyde. Thank you so much for listening today. Well, folks, listen, we've just got to get out of here. We're flat out of time. You have been listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, and aren't you glad that you have? You have heard today what you will hear probably nowhere else tonight. Now, I predict in the next few weeks and months, you're going to hear much, much more about it, even from the mainstream, because when Arpaio starts making arrests and Congress starts investigating and more investigations are done and more stuff is brought out and more news conferences are held, it can't go away. You're going to hear more and more. ABC News has already reported it. Go to carlgallups.com. You can see the ABC News report. You can see Arpaio's hour-and-a-half report. You can see all the videos I've made. You can see everything there about that and Breitbart. All of this happening in the same week. History's being made. What was announced yesterday about the president's birth certificate is absolutely astounding, stupendous history. May God bless you, and God please bless America.